Welcome back. It's been a while since we've done any tying. We've been shooting the shows and the podcasts and stuff like that. And so if any of you out there are doctors and you can tell me I'm going to try to make it through this. I got some shoulder thing going on that all of a sudden halfway through my shoulder's going to drop and I'm going to be like, walk this way. Young Frankenstein, in case you don't know the reference. So anyway, we're going to do the Fathead kitty. I've got one of mine in here. This is a commercial version. I'm going to show you a few different things about it. Can't take those glasses. Don't hit the fast forward. I'm going to start talking. This is a commercial version with the tails that we did with MFC. These are really cool. I've done some with this one. These are cool too. But I'm going to do the original version because the tails, in my estimation, I think the tail's probably what makes this fly. It's a stall fly. This has kind of become, in the big fly world, I say this a lot about this is my favorite fly, or somebody said I have like 50 favorite flies, and it's true, but I design my flies in a style of fly. And this isn't, all streamers aren't the same to me. There's some flies are stalling flies, some are made to kick and accelerate, flutter. They're all made to do something different. And this one was kind of a dual thing. This one's supposed to be kind of neutral, doesn't dive like this very much, but it does a big stall when you pause it. It's got a fat head on it, and that's why it's called a Fathead kitty, and it stalls. This has become, as big fish go, Braden told me that his 4 biggest fish last year on this. I know we had, in Chile last year, we had some hugies on it, and this summer, it just never seems to fail. And it's a very reactive fly. You push it, it moves a lot of water, and you stall it, just letting it die, kind of. Not like you would a suspension fly, like a flatline or something like that, but you stall it, and it just, you're going, and it stalls just slightly, and that tail just goes like this, and all the stuff moves around. So when you look at it, you'll see it's got a number. There's 70-52 hooks. There's a 4 on the back and a 1/0 in the front, and that's up to you. You can do whatever you want with that. And so, but the tail's critical. And like I said, it doesn't matter. I don't think the color, because this was the commercial version. That's my feather. That one that I designed for just showing a little two-toning effect. My original ones were all white. That's why I'm going to do this one. This is one of mine. And so it's really, really simple. It's got a tail. It's got some UV polar chenille, just regular UV. And then it's got a couple of things of marabou for skirting. It's got 1 bead. Then it's this be duplicated all over again, except for when we get up to the front. Then I'm gonna put on, I don't know what I did, here it is. This barred mini marabou from MFC. This is the 2-inch. It just gives it a little bit more on the top. It's a really nice look. And then, of course, it's got some rubber legs and some deer head and some lead eyes. So large lead eyes on this one. I'm going to start at the top, at the back of the hook, the smallest one. And this hook, seldom do you get a fish on this hook. But I still go through everything I would, even if I thought that was when you were going to get every one of them with that hook. And I always start the same way. This is where I make a 10-minute fly into 40. I start this using my thread as a gauge, and I want you to look at this where this isn't where I'm going to have the head. It's where I want my body materials to end, because I'm going to have 3 or 4 turns of marabou on here, and then I'm going to have a head. The head is completely invisible back there. I'm using white 6/0 Semper fly. Pardon me, forgot what I was doing. I get a buy. It's my first fly on TV forever. So I took this, and I'm hesitant to use this because this is a whiting saddle. You can use whatever saddle, I like the thicker ones, so I prefer this. The reason I like the whiting stuff, but you can't get it anymore. It's virtually impossible to get the American saddles. And so anything that's got that's shiny. The thing about Schlappen is it's generally dull. If you get strung hackle, and you can see it's a little brighter, I like that shine that's to the feathers, and that's what this is. And this is, I don't know, this is a 4-inch tail. So, you know, a lot of people are worried about the fish. They're going to say they're going to get short strikes. I think at this point in the world, we realize that they eat the heads, not the tails. And so, Johnny had on one of his flies once, he had a 7.5-inch tail on one of the kill whiteys, and no problem, no difference. So all I did was strip these. I'm gonna lay them right on top. There's 2 feathers, and you'll see I'm gonna do those really loose. I'm not really putting a lot of juice on this feather right now, because you're talking 2 round things sitting on another round thing, right? You got your hook and you got the stems of your feathers, and they want to tend to roll around. So when you first put that on there, just take just do the first 3 or 4 turns so they're nice and, you know, just sitting there. It's not going to be rolling one way or the other. If you put a lot of pressure on it, it's going to have a tendency to want to roll. I took that up right to where I'm going to have my marabou start, come back, and now you can give it a little bit, you can be get a little more aggressive on your tightening, because it's not going to roll. It's already in there. It's nice and loose, nice and tight, but you're not so tight that you twist the feather around the hook. Now we're going to take this UV polar chenille, strip a little of that off just so you got, and I like to start this so that all the material is going to the left. But when you wrap this UV, don't just, hey, come back here. Don't just take off running with the stuff. And see, I'm ending where I'm going to have to wrap that marabou. So I see a lot of people, I've watched people even on YouTube do that, where they just kind of take off running with this stuff, and it tends to get trapped. I want to have nice even wraps because I want all these fibers to stick out, but I don't want them being wrapped underneath each other. So what I do is I just make sure, and all you got to do is get it started in one direction, right? So everything's going in one direction, and what I don't want to do is have this stuff happening. So I just preen it back just like you would a wet fly hackle. There's not much going to show on this. It's just hints flash now and then. But if you notice, I just keep this stuff to the back. And it just leaves me a much cleaner tie. I don't have all those materials. Like I said, there's not much to it anyway. There's not a lot of flash in there. And if half of them are trapped underneath themselves, it's going to make for a less shine than you want out of that feather, or out of that material. All right, so just clean that up a little bit. Leave yourself to tie in this marabou. This is a spot where I will use, this is woolly bugger marabou. And if you look at these, the difference between strung marabou and woolly bugger marabou, I've talked about that in a lot of videos. These are shorter, right? But as I just saw one in here. So it's all the same, it's all marabou, but there's one that's really, there's a real marabou plume right there, right? That should be in what would be called strung, this longer stuff. But I don't need that huge amount, so just go through here and you can pluck, just 1 or 2 of the really short, the ones that come over. You want it to marry into this feather. I had one already pulled out. So you want it to marry into this feather, but you don't want it to go way back into the feather. So you just want to cover everything up here. And these are really fine. You can see really fine stems. Now I'm going to set this. I'm going to do it by the tip. I'm going to set it. I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to use the tip to tie it. But I'm going to tie it in at the base here, right in the middle. As always, I go underneath there, hit the stem against my thread, and then just clean that up, bring it right up here. So you're going to, just a small head on this. You're not going to see this head. Uh-oh, there they are. Pull this down. This is just a cover to kind of make it all look like the same piece of fish or whatever this thing's supposed to look like. So we're just going to go across now. Just everyone, just kind of preen that back just a little bit to keep them going backwards. Just same thing you would do with a wet fly. Keep them kind of fluffy there. Go right to the eye. We'll go right back over top of that. You can leave that tip back there. It's all the same length. You can see it's all the same. So just cover this up. As a tool, as you're learning, if you notice, you should be looking for the same size heads. One of the hallmarks, you watch a Rich Strolis or guys like that. Rich is a commercial tire and design a lot of flies. But if you look at these guys, what you'll see is they won't have a four-turn head and a 5-turn head. They won't have a 3. They're going to have a select number. And whatever that number is, if I like to have on this is 4, that's what it is. Everyone should be like that. It's just something that the more you do that, the more often you get in that habit. I hit that with a little lacquer. The more you get in that habit, the less your consistency will just get way better. So now we're going to go to the front hook. Like I said, if any doctor out there knows why my shoulder, I don't know if it's a rotator or what, but if you can fix it, I'll give you a week's free stay. It's unbelievable. Where am I? Oh yeah, back at the ranch. Okay, now I'm going to take about a 5 to 7 inch piece of wire. This is Surflon 17 strand. I give it a little pull like that. The beauty of these, this is a 70-52, so they're all ring eyes, front and back, so which means instead of the, can you see that? Instead of the hook being down, it's up, it's straight up and down instead of being flat like this one. Makes it a lot easier. It's going to have a single bead in here. And again, the beauty to this hook style is instead of, the beauty is if you had your thread already on there. Instead of having to, go backwards. Okay, I forgot something. We might want to get this part started. So we're going to set the eyes before we put the wire on, which I got ahead of myself. So I'm going to set a set of large dumbbell eyes, and I'm going to 3 or 4 wraps, roll it over, 3 or 4 wraps, and then a couple underneath it like this. And if you've got a sample, whatever your sample is, you can kind of just wing that. If you look at a lot of my older flies, I tied it behind the heads, the eyes behind the head, but this kind of got more popular. And what you're seeing is I'm not, these are totally, you can move them wherever you want right now. So back to this. And what I was saying is the beauty of this new style of hook is that the wire's on top, so I can see if there's any, when I look down over top of my bead, I can see if there's a crisscross in the wire. You can't have that. If your wires aren't going straight back on top, if there's a loop in it, after you cast this a while, that back fly will turn sideways. We don't want that. So as always, we're going to set this. When I pull my wire, I hold it with one hand, hold my hook in the other, and I get room to manipulate it, right? Get that a little tight. and I pull this. All right. We're going to have to give up on that first fly of the season thing in a second. Get it back here, and I want this bead to touch the hook just barely and still have a gap behind there. I don't want it really tight so it doesn't wiggle, but I don't want it so tight that it's doing a little kick up in the ass. So come back here, as always, make sure everything's right flush on top. You got lots of room to play right now. And then come right over to your hook barb where it goes up. That's where you stop everything. Now we're going to come forward. That's why we're going to use this wire to tighten the eyes down. A lot of people don't want to do this step. It's fine with me. You can glue them. I have always done this one way, one the other. I just know they're never, ever going to come out. And I've said it in a different video. Johnny and I tied one of these, not this one, but we tied them right on the hook and we super glued them. If you want to super glue it, just take a little hit of glue in there right now. If you do that, what we did, a lot of people don't want to do this crisscross. They want to just go through and tighten it down with super glue. We pulled on super glued ones and we couldn't get them to break. But I just can't get comfortable with, I know this way everything works. Come underneath here, get one side, pull the other side, make sure you pull those nice and tight. Give them a good pull right there. Nice and tight right now. Make sure you can see through that front eye. I mean, if you don't have room for your tippet, you're going to be kind of mad here in a minute. Notice that this comes back to the halfway point, constantly building your tapers. Tapers are everything in fly tying. And then we get back up here, and underneath here, I don't know if you can see it, but they're kind of loose. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come as close from the front back, going backwards. I'm going to get as close as I can to that eye, come back here, and I'm pulling forward, and then I go underneath them and just squeeze. Squeeze. 2 or 3 turns, squeeze. Now those eyes are absolutely impossible to move. And you'll never, I don't care if you got a marlin on, you couldn't pull that wire out from that hook. And so you're just, there it is. But the beauty is you just physically can't move those things once they're on there. So now, back to your sample. If you'll notice, the front skirt is going to cover the back skirt. It should be just a little bit longer. So you can go either way. You can just look in your marabou. If you've got strung marabou like this, dig around and you can find a short one. This is one that I picked because it didn't have many short ones. I think I'm going to go to the woolly bugger. Where are you? So the woolly bugger marabou is all short. This one has quite a few. Just got to get one just a little bit longer than the last one you put in. And if you want to tie this in by the tip, a lot of steelhead tying and wherever your decorations that are a little less fish, a little bit more visual, people get really concerned with this. This is all going to get hidden by all the other stuff on there. All this is supposed to do is go back halfway into this second skirt, so when there's not a big gap from the fish's view, not a big gap underneath there. It's just to keep it homogeneous, so it looks like when I'm done, all that's going to get covered up. So I'm back right to I want you to notice that I'm back to where when your hook hangs, this has got a very big barb. When it's hanging there, that's a marker for you. That's telling you nothing gets to go past that. Everything on there has to stop. If you put 10 materials on, every time when you're done, that should be right in line with the barb. Otherwise, you're kind of guessing and your materials you'll have different lengths on them. One will be longer than the other and it'll just look like crap. And again, we're gonna tie this in. It's just a cover. That's all this is for. I'm gonna get 4 or 5 turns, maybe. I'm just gonna preen it back just a little bit. If you're using regular marabou, it'll be a little bit harder right here, just because the fibers are gonna be longer. And again, it's all marabou, doesn't matter. I can leave that tip in there. It looks just like the rest of it. My bobbin keeps loosening up. So just stroke it back, get it all back here, kind of out of your way. Go right back over top of it. That'll secure it. Just keep it nice. See how it's just pulling it back. Get right back to where your bob, right where we started. One more, boom. Now, that's totally covered, right? If a fish comes in and bites it, he's not gonna break the stem. Everything's gonna be fine. I don't wanna fight that again like I did. So same thing, we're gonna go forward. And again, if you've got a sample, just kind of take a look. I'm gonna go forward. I gotta leave room for, I've gotta put a wing in it and rubber legs. Just look at your sample, how long your body's gonna be. Just get an idea. You know, have a tape measure, if you will. It's a guide for you. And if you can start this going in one direction, your life will be better off, but you get a chance to just, I want it to go backwards, so I'm gonna come in here, get out of the way. I'm gonna hook this. I'm gonna hook that with just the fibers. I stripped all the stuff out of it. Okay, then I'm going to work forward, nice tight wraps. You never use a loose wrap. Even going forward, don't get in the habit of just loose wraps. Everyone should have a purpose. So then you just look at your sample, right? You know that your head's going to be here. You've got to put marabou, you've got to put rubber legs. So make sure you've got room to do all that. Just take your... See how this is all going one direction, and it's gonna roll a little bit. You just keep looking at it. But every third or fourth one, give it a kind of a tight pull. You'll see it stretch, and when you do that, you might have to. It'll twist a little bit. Just keep trying to make it go one direction. You're just gonna you'll get a cleaner fly. You notice on the 4th or 5th one, I give it that pretty tight pull. A soft bodies just come undone, period. Kind of like this bobbin is. Soft bodies and soft bobbins. What's going on here? There we go. No, it's too tight. So come in, and this, you'll see this is kind of another thing. You see people get right up here, they just kind of go over, clean it up before you wrap through it. Look at it to see that you're really tight. Not a bunch of, you shouldn't have a bunch of buildup right here. I mean, no material takes more than 3 turns to secure or to put on. And so, it should be very clean, so I'm not working against anything right here. Got that out of the way so you could see it. And so now we're going to put on rubber legs. Not sure if these are, if you're anti-rubber leg, I'm not sure they do much. The original one had it. I've had them get beat up where there aren't any legs on them, and it doesn't seem to do a lot. I particularly like, on my own, I like the ones with the chromy. This is the white with the chrome fleck or specks in it. There's some other ones that are, I had them in this one and I just couldn't, I ran out. I didn't have any more sitting here, but this one has some of the barred in it. I really like the bar, especially when I do the ones with these black tip tails, because that's going to be the same marabou on top. When I do that, I like that black flick in it. And again, I do this fly in a ton of colors, so. But I'm going to put these on. try to get an idea when you set your rubber legs, just kind of get them in the middle here so you're not pulling them too much. And just do a single figure 8 around them. Notice I had 0 pressure on that. I'm looking down, they're the same length. I get the opportunity now to pick them up and move them wherever I want them without doing anything. Now you've got a figure 8, a right to left, a left to right. Now I'm going to come in front of the legs. I'm going to do 2 turns. Second turn, I'm going to pull, and they're completely secured. I'm done. They'll never roll, they'll never move, and you won't cut your legs in half.
Move the bottle over.
It's all right. So now we're going to do in a second here, we're going to put that, straw those. You can do that right now if you want. Now I'm going to take 2 plumes of this barred mini marabou, and I'm going to, and by the way, when you buy MFC mini bar, they've already been hand selected. So there's it's not like when I've told people 100 times in videos, 1,000 maybe, get used to about, on natural materials, between 30 and 50% cull. You're going to half of it's no good. But when you get in this stuff, it's already been culled and set up so it's, there is no waste. So I'm going to get this, I get them right on top of each other, and I want this one to go back over, just touching maybe halfway into the back hook, the marabou on the back hook, right? So 2 at once, just put them right on. You can do it 1 at a time if you want. Just look, I've already measured that up. Okay, that I can't live with. When they roll off, I don't like that. There's 2 of them in there, it's the only downside to working with doubles. Okay. Now we've got to get a full turn. Between you and me, I can't take that. It's wanting to roll on me, so I'm going to quit fighting it. I wanted to do them at the same time. Doesn't want to work for it, so we're going to. And that, you can tell, this isn't a really big overwing. It's not that big of a feather. And this one had a heavier barring on it, so I selected that one for the top. There. Now, those are pretty light. This thing's still rolling on me. I want 1 more on there. And I don't want him. If I have to do that 10 times, I have no problem. If it's going to fight me, there's no, sometimes they just fight you. But I think it needs a little bit more in that. That one was really light. I'm just going to grab another one. Ooh. Clean all this stuff off the bottom here. Tends to be a little, the dyeing process makes it a little thicker right there too. There's just no build to this, so it's not going to hurt you. You could put 4 in there if you wanted to. For those of you who don't watch Davey McPhail, you should. He's one of my tying heroes. I have a lot of tying heroes, but I watched Davey the other day have to reset something twice, and I was just like, felt like the king of the world that Davey McPhail actually had to do something twice. Should I do it like that all the time? Twice would be a good day. So you can cut these now if you want. I'm going to leave them all together. So just take a straw and cut it down lengthwise just to get this stuff out of your way. That was a little long. I want it more out of my way. It's just two things, and make sure your rubber legs are underneath there. If you put that on there, you got a nice clean space to put your head. We're going to spin this, then we got to trim it, right? And so what you don't want to be trimming on it and cut your legs off. And so that just covers it up. Now this has got a white head. And by the way, the white, what's your number 2? Olive? Yellow? Fathead? You just fish white. That's all you fish.
Olive, black, yellow, tan.
Yeah, we do this in 5 colors, but the white is for sure. If you watched any of the Hunt for the 30 or any of our fishing shows, it is so common for me to start with either this or a white boogeyman every morning. Doesn't really matter. I just like white to start the day off. It's just me. But this fly in the white version is so easy to see when you're casting it and you first start. That's part of the reason I like it in the morning. Just gets me in a rhythm. Now, this is called the Fathead Kitty for a reason. And I'm going to put the problem with white hair is it's all belly hair or rump hair, and there's not a lot of it. And so it's hard to get patches this size. This is a big patch, really. And it's hard to get long enough hair to make a collar and spin it. I'm going to try to get a spin out of it just to speed things up. But make sure you clean this out real well. And again, you get options to go back and add hair over and over here. But it's called a Fathead Kitty for a reason. It's got a broad head, and the head is designed to do something. We talk about this on our podcast. We're actually going to talk some more about it today if we do one. And everything's by design. If you're designing flies as a profession, you don't just copy somebody else. You don't just do that. You make it for a reason. Now this thing's got a huge tail on it, right? And it's got not a hugely bulky body, but the head's designed to slow the fly down so that when this slows down, it's this huge profile, not a lot of weight to it. It's a huge profile. It's to be a great musky fly, by the way. Huge profile. It comes at you, just haul, and you've pulled on it, you've stripped it, and then you pause it. And pause or stall. Stalling is how I fish most of the time. I move the fly very fast. I hit it, and on the second or third one, and I stall it and let it just kind of sit there for half a second. And that's where the tail comes in and starts doing that spinning around in circle thing. Not a circle, but spinning around. So, clean my hair. It's called the Fathead Kitty because it's got a fat head. And so I'm going to stack this one, and I'm going to use this as my collar. The collar is not as critical on this fly in the respect that it's not a sculpin necessarily. This is an attractor pattern. So normally when I set my collars, you can look at any of the videos, I do the collar separately, but I'm going to be fighting these eyes, and I want to use this hair as the head too, so I need length. So I got to make sure I got a collar that's going to come back about halfway down the body, and put it on here. And I'll tell you in a second another way to do this. And I'm just letting it, I'm going to get 2 turns, and I'm going to let it roll around, and I'm going to spin it right there. Okay, and I'm going to look and see if it went around enough. It didn't really spin much. That's the problem with eyes. So I'm going to take another little piece, and I'm going to do a stack on the bottom. If it goes all the way around, you can sit here and mess with it. I don't want a ton of it down there, but I've got to spin. And then I'm simply going to take 1 turn just like that, nothing else to it. I'm going to cut this off on the bottom anyway, straight down, pull. And now I got hair circling the eyes, right? So I've got lots of hair here. I looked on the bottom. It looked a little sparse. And so I just came in. All it takes is 1 turn. You can see it's all right there. then I'll spin this front one. And I'm going to use a pretty good spin here again. The pencil theory. It's as big around as a pencil. I'm bleeding. So back we go, get right to the front of the eye. That hair's a little short. All right, and now all you're doing is, see, I've got 2 turns of thread on this thing. No need to do anything right now. You're letting it work around the hook, and then you just spin it. And it'll do 1. I don't want to go real tight right now because I'm going to stack this in a little bit. I'm going to put another one in there. I want this to be a big head. I'm going to push that back so it's nice and tight against the eyes. And the next one I do, the last one, will do the same thing. Must have stabbed me. This one's same thing. We're going to go, you're going to tie this one in just a little bit to the side. The reason you tie these things off to the side when you're spinning is so you don't catch, people will go like this and they'll tie it at an angle. It's so you don't come back here and catch that hair. That's why you put the angle to it so you can see. So you just get your finger in there. Try not to catch many back there. Let it spin. Add 2 turns around it. You'll know when your heads are right. And by the way, people have often said that you have to spin on a bare hook. This has lead eyes, 2 pieces of wire on the top, 2 pieces on the bottom, all that build up. You just relax your hand a little bit and let that hair work around the hook, and you'll be fine. So not much of a head here. Damn, this bobbin's driving me crazy today. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to trim this thing out. Don't get rid of that. Do not get rid of the straw. This is where you cut your hair or your legs off. I'm going to take just a double-edged razor. And again, when I do my heads, I don't, you can make these as hard and packed, as thick as you want. I tend to make mine less thick. If you want to sit and, like, you could have doubled up the amount of hair I put on this head. But I use the hair just as a facade. It's just I don't want it, the more I put on it, the more it's, the more dense it gets, the cleaner your heads will look. But that's not what I do. I'm looking for a silhouette. I'm just trying to build the shape of the head so that it's nice and broad and it slows water down. So I'm going to come in here and just take the blade, go right into your collar, and just build the shape you're looking for. Take your time here, just kind of get it roughed out. Just want to, got a good collar there, off of there. I'm going to come on the bottom here and just going to get this cleaned up on the bottom. And then I go over top of it and I shape it over top so I can see that I'm pretty close to the shape that I'm looking for. I like to take them and look straight over top of it so I can see that I'm pretty close to the same everywhere. If one side's longer than the other a little, it's not going to be critical too bad on this fly because of the weight of the fly. But if you do that with like a zoo cougar or something and you don't get it pretty close, your fly tends to go one way or the other. want to see the body, so I'm coming in here and I'm cutting that off when I pull the straw. And then just go in and again, if you really want to if you want it to be really, really shapely and pretty and you're going to take a lot of time on it, stack a little bit more hair on it, because it's harder to do a lighter head and get a really clean looking. You know, you're not going to get a really tight edge to it. I mean, you can still get them pretty close, but just kind of come in and you can bump this right against your finger. You notice that I put my hand right down. As soon as I wanted to, you end up pushing it if you don't have something to hit against, because I don't have it. If it's super hard packed, you can just trim it. If it's light packed like this one is, you get it. Just come in and I'm just bumping the ends there, bump it against my finger. As long as you don't twist that thing, you'll never cut yourself. If you bump into it, like I'm just bumping myself. There's probably some saying about that I don't know about, but I'm going to hear about it. I always do. Okay. Now you can come in here, drop that. This is one of our best-selling flies too, by the way. I like to look that they aren't going to go too far back. I pull them back and look, I want it to go, I don't want it to be much past the point of the hook. So there we go. So just a little bit more trimming here and should be good to go. But what you've got is this is the Fathead kitty. This is, like I said, it's become kind of between guide world here. Braden and I, a lot of the guides, this has become a real big fish hunter. I've got a little bit of a trim job to do here yet to get that the right length, but we'll get that in a minute. So that's the Fathead kitty, super fast fly, really. I have one of these right here that I was just starting. I do, it just as a production tip, if you want to just sit and tie a half a dozen of the tails and then move on, it's a little bit quicker. You get a little bit more consistency because you get to see everyone's identical. But anyway, this has become right up there with the Slick Willie. This fly has become like the go-to fly for really big fish. It catches small fish too, but when we're out and we're really trying to get the giant, this fly is going to go on for sure in the first two rotations. So right in the beginning. Big fly, pretty light. I think you'll find it's pretty easy to cast. Hope you liked it. Hope it helps you out.